My next guest is hoping to send Lindsey Graham off into a very unhappy retirement at Shady Pines. Please welcome the Democratic candidate for U.S. Senator from the great state of South Carolina, Jaime Harrison. How are you, Jaime?
I'm great, Billy. Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome, man. Congratulations on your virtual hosting.
Yes, virtual hosting. That's a good way of putting it. I have to say congratulations to you. Last night I saw that your campaign just raised a staggering $13.9 million, which is, not exactly Kelsey Grammer Frazier money, but it's still very impressive. So I have to ask you, how are you feeling right now? The polls have you virtually tied with Lindsey Graham. And at the same time, South Carolina hasn't elected a Democrat to the Senate since 1998. That's a very long time. So what made you say, I'm the guy to do it? I'm the guy that can beat Lindsey Graham.
Well, Billy, when I first got into this race, and I told people, I'm going to run for the United States Senate, and they said, that's great, Jaime. And then they turned around and chuckled, because many folks didn't take me seriously. But, folks said that, you can't win. You can't win against a guy who's been there for 25 years, a guy who flies around on Air Force One and golfs with the President of the United States.
Right.
But this is the thing. All my life, I've beaten the odds. I grew up in a small rural town. My mom was a teenager when she had me. My grandparents helped raise me. They didn't have much education. So in every step of my life, people have said, well, you can't do this. You can't go to college. And I went to Yale. You can't get a law degree. I got one from Georgetown. You can't become the chair of the Democratic Party. And I was the first black chair. And now folks are telling me, Jaime, you can't beat Lindsey Graham. Well, we just beat him last quarter. We raised $7.4 million. He raised 5.6. And this quarter, we almost doubled what we raised because we are going to beat him. We're going to close the chapter on what I call the Old South, which Lindsey is a relic of, and we're going to start our own new chapter. It's called the New South, a New South that is bold, that's inclusive, and that's diverse. And I feel it. I feel the energy on the ground with Democrats, Republicans, and independents who are just fed up with Lindsey Graham and the rubber stamping that he's been doing.
Yeah, again, it's so impressive. Now, one thing I found fascinating that you said about Lindsey is that you said, I think the quote is, Lindsey's too into being Lindsey. What did you mean by that?
Well, he's totally focused on his own political power and political relevance. He's not focused on the people of South Carolina. I mean, Billy, when you think about it, this is a man who hasn't done an in-person live town hall in almost 3 years. And so much of South Carolina is falling apart. And the coronavirus has just made it worse. I mean, this is a state where 38% of our rural communities have no access to broadband Wi-Fi. I mean, that means they can't get on the internet. Right now, a report just came out that said 17,000 kids have not been in contact with their school systems since March. We're in a place where 14 of our 46 counties had no OBGYNs. And so there's so much need here. But we have a senator who cares more about his tea times with the president or flying on Air Force One or some fancy dinner instead of coming here and rolling up his sleeves to do the work of the people of South Carolina. And it's just sad to see this.
I heard an interview that Lindsey Graham did on The Daily, the New York Times podcast last year. And they said to him, how could you be so opposed to Trump before Trump won and now be one of his closest supporters? And he said what you just said. He literally said, it's because I like to stay relevant. He used that word. And I thought, relevant? That's not something a politician describes themselves as being. Relevant is like what a pop star worries about. Relevant is like what Meghan Trainor worries about, or like, Kylie Jenner. Or that's not something that a politician should be thinking about. You know what I mean?
It's a sad statement because relevance for me is making sure that all of the kids that grew up the way that I did, poor and having all these barriers in front of them, can live the American dream. That's what we want. That's what we need. And Lindsey's not doing that. We just need somebody who will fight for us and not fight against us. And that's why we're building this movement, a grassroots movement, to change South Carolina, bring hope back to our state. And as I always tell folks, you want to be a part of it, go to JaimeHarrison.com and be a part of this movement that we are building here in South Carolina. Because things are going to change, and we're going to see it in this election.
JaimeHarrison.com is a fantastic website. One of my favorite websites, along with EntertainmentTonight.com. Those are my two favorites. One a little bit more politically relevant than the other. They're telling me I'm short on time, but I want to ask you one other thing, because I'm kind of a political junkie.
Yes.
You know, South Carolina became the pivot point this year in the presidential election. Biden was basically considered out of the running until the South Carolina primary, and then everything changed in a night when the voters of South Carolina basically said, Biden's our guy by a very wide margin, and now Biden's the nominee. And I'm interested in that because right now you have a Democratic Party where you have Biden, a more moderate, some would say like old dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, is on the ticket. But then you have so much energy coming from the more progressive side of the party and young people who supported Bernie or Elizabeth Warren, who are as passionate as they've ever been about politics, but might not be as excited about Biden as they would have been about Bernie or Elizabeth Warren. And as someone from the state, which essentially made Biden the nominee, I'm curious, how do you see us bridging the gap in our party once we do win in November?
Well, you know, it's a great question, Billy. And, you know, I had a conversation with the vice president when he was here in February. And I told him, and this is what we're doing on our race, is that most folks are so busy, they don't have the time to watch CNN and MSNBC to get the latest on the policy and this and that. That's all of us activists who like to know all of those types of things. Most people are just trying to make ends meet and take care of their families. And I told him, I said, many people are going to make a decision on who they're going to vote for president and United States Senate at the very last minute. We got to make sure that not only are we speaking to the head, which is the policy and all the wonky stuff, but we also, and most importantly, have to speak to the heart. We got to speak to the fears, the aspirations, and the hopes of the American people. And I told him, I said, if you do that, Mr. VP, you will win. You will win a primary. You will win here in South Carolina. You will win the presidency. And I know we will do the very same thing. We will beat Lindsey Graham because we're speaking to the hopes, the aspirations, and the dreams of all of the folks in South Carolina. And the current senator doesn't even know where that is.
Wise words. Thank you, Jaime Harrison. I wish we could talk forever. I hope I get to see you down the road.
And I'm going to send you, Billy, I don't know if you saw these. These are the Lindsey Graham flip-flops that are on our website. I'm going to send you a pair. So I'll get your size and we'll send you a pair of these Lindsey Graham flip-flops.
Okay, great. They'll go great with my Lindsey Graham condoms that I use. So, all right, Jaime Harrison, an honor to have you. Good luck on the campaign trail and congrats on everything that's happened so far. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Billy. Take care now. Stay safe.
Take care.